Hello, my name is Dr. Brent Kelly. I am Vice President and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research. I'd like to share with you a few thoughts about a methodology that I use when looking at technologies to decide if they are disruptive and truly innovative or whether they are simply sustaining innovations. I'd like to apply this methodology to WebRTC, which is a new technology that is emerging that provides voice, video, and data collaboration within the context of a web browser, but with no downloads. I'd like to begin by posing a question. Is WebRTC innovative? Is it truly innovative? Now, as I have perused the literature, looked at blog posts, magazine articles, websites, and so forth, it appears that there's basically two camps. There's a camp that says WebRTC is just a bunch of hype. It's not going to have any impact on the industry at all, and that it is being promoted way too heavily. There's another group that says, no, WebRTC is truly innovative and disruptive, and that it is going to completely change the communications industry. I'd like to give you a few examples of these statements, and these are real examples taken from real websites. So, for example, the first one, WebRTC, who really cares? Is it just a panacea? On the other hand, there are those who say, WebRTC, yeah, there's a lot of hype there, but it's going to change everything about VoIP. Someone else has said, I'm trying to find where the beef is in WebRTC. And a fourth person has said, WebRTC is the single largest technology change on the web today, and it is going to change everything with how we work with and interact with the web. So is WebRTC innovative? In order to really decide if WebRTC is going to be disruptive, I thought I would go to the master on innovation and disruption, Dr. Clayton Christensen, who wrote The Innovator's Dilemma. If we recall, Dr. Christensen's book discusses sustaining innovation and disruptive innovation. Sustaining innovation focuses on investment and technology for mainstream customers. Sustaining innovation ultimately ends up creating tools and solutions that have more features than even the high end of the market can use. And as a consequence, the companies who continue to develop sustaining technologies ultimately fail. On the other hand, disruptive technologies are initially rejected by mainstream customers because they cannot currently use them. But with time and more development, they eventually reach a point where they do become usable, first at the low end of the market and then at the high end of the market. The Innovator's Dilemma presents a set of rules for capitalizing on this phenomenon of disruptive innovation. With that in mind, let's look at 3 litmus tests Dr. Christensen discusses in the Innovator's Dilemma to determine if a new technology will be disruptive. I'd like to remind you what a litmus test is. A litmus test is simply an indicator. If we place a drop of an alkaline solution on a piece of red litmus paper, the red litmus paper turns blue. On the other hand, if we place a drop of acid on a piece of blue litmus paper, the blue litmus paper turns red. Litmus tests do not give the exact magnitude of the amount of acid or base present in a solution. Instead, they're simply an indicator that an acid or base is present. Let's use this concept of litmus tests to determine if WebRTC is truly disruptive. The first of the 3 litmus tests is called the new market test. The test reads as follows. Is there a large population of people who historically have not had the money, equipment, or skill to do this thing for themselves, and as a result have gone without it altogether, or have needed to pay someone with more expertise to do it for them? I would say that WebRTC fails this first portion of the new market test. And the reason I say this is because there have been solutions that provide voice over IP and video over IP for free for many, many years. You can get it from Skype. You can get it from Microsoft. You can get it from Yahoo. You can get it from Google. I would say that if someone wants to have IP voice or video and to some extent collaboration on their personal devices, these capabilities are already available at low to no cost. Now, some of my industry colleagues would say, well, not everybody can do this the way that they want to do it. And so I highlight this idea of not having the skill or ability to do this thing for themselves. My colleagues would argue that WebRTC does pass this first part of the new market test because it enables a multitude of people who now have an easy way to include voice, video, and collaboration in applications, line of business software, and in many yet to be developed tools. There is some merit in this argument, but I still believe that WebRTC ultimately fails this portion of the new market test. However, there is a second part of the new market test we still need to look at, which reads as follows. To use the product or service, can people begin using it in a more convenient context? I would say that WebRTC certainly passes this test. I think it's clear that people have been wanting to communicate broadly with voice, video, and data collaboration, and unhappily, numerous walled gardens have emerged. For example, Skype will not communicate with Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts will not communicate with Microsoft Link. It seems like there are always barriers preventing people from communicating seamlessly, regardless of where they happen to be and regardless of which endpoint they happen to use. As I look at communications from this perspective, WebRTC does pass the new market test because it will certainly make it easier and more convenient for people to communicate. Let's now turn to the second litmus test, the low-end market test. The first part of this test reads, are there customers at the low end of the market who would be happy to purchase a product with less but good enough performance if they could get it at a lower price? Well, voice and video are already free. You can get free voice and video from so many places that I believe that WebRTC fails for this part of the low-end market test. The second part of this test reads, can a business model be created that enables the new company to earn attractive profits at the discounted prices required to win the business of these overserved customers at the low end? Well, again, given that voice and video over the web are effectively free, I don't believe that WebRTC passes the low-end market test at all. So we have seen that WebRTC passes the new market test and that it fails the low-end market test completely. Now, if an innovation passes either of these two tests, then there is a third critical litmus test that it must also pass, which is the incumbent test. The incumbent test reads as follows. Is the innovation disruptive to all of the significant incumbent firms in the industry? If it appears to be sustaining to one or more significant players in the industry, then the odds will be stacked in that firm's favor and the entrant is unlikely to win. I believe that WebRTC is disruptive to all of the incumbent firms in the communications industry. It disrupts the PBX firms, it disrupts the video firms, and it will disrupt the web conferencing firms. Therefore, I would say that WebRTC passes this third litmus test. As I interpret the innovator's dilemma and these litmus tests, WebRTC passes the new market test and it clearly passes the incumbent market test. Therefore, it's my belief that based on the principles of the innovator's dilemma, WebRTC has the potential to truly disrupt the communications market. Thanks for viewing. If you'd like to learn more about WebRTC, please see the article that I wrote that's posted on the Constellation Research website called 10 Things CIOs Need to Know About WebRTC. Also, see my blog posts that have been posted on nojitter.com. Thank you very much.